Chosen one, right now, your name is being traded like currency in rooms you haven't even entered. You may have sensed a strange heaviness lately, and the truth is that the rumors going around town about you are part of a coordinated effort to keep you stagnant. An actual group is currently gathered, weaving a narrative designed to convince the world that you deserve to stay stuck in place. They believe their circle is sealed, and that their whispers are safe from discovery. There was a version of your life that was clearly in motion. You could feel it, something building, something aligning. Maybe it was a connection with someone who saw you, really saw you, and the pull between you was the kind of thing that did not need explaining. Maybe it was momentum in what you were creating, in who you were becoming. Whatever it was, it had weight, it had direction, it felt like something that was supposed to happen, and then quietly, without announcement, without a single obvious thing you could point to, it stopped. The flow that had been moving started moving with friction. The person who had been coming toward you went cold without explanation. The doors that were swinging open started clicking shut before you could cross the threshold. Opportunities that were forming dissolved before they arrived. You reached for things that should have been right there and found nothing. Because you are the kind of person you are, you turned the interrogation inward. You asked yourself what you did wrong, what you were missing, what it was about you that kept this from working. You went over every conversation, every decision, every moment you could find that might explain the gap between what should be happening and what actually was. The ground was not shifting because of you. The ground was shifting because someone was working underneath it, and you did not know there was anything underneath it at all. And here is what nobody tells you about being the subject of a deliberate rumor campaign. It does not just affect the people who hear it. It affects you directly, without you ever knowing it is happening. Coordinated negative speech directed at a person across multiple conversations, sustained over time, creates a real drag on your life force. You feel it as a heaviness you cannot explain, as the persistent sense that something is working against you without any visible evidence of what that something is. You pray harder, you work more, you try to align more carefully, and the drag remains, invisible and exhausting, because the source is not inside you. It never was. At some point, someone looked at you and made a decision. It was not a spontaneous decision. It was a calculated one. Something about your trajectory, the pull that existed between you and a certain person, or a certain version of your life, represented a direct threat to what someone else was protecting. So the calculation was made. If you cannot be controlled, the story about you can be. The campaign started small. It began with one ear and one carefully shaped story, dropped into one trusted relationship. Nothing was dramatic, and nothing was easily traceable. There was just a hesitation, a raised eyebrow, a quiet "I probably shouldn't say this, but..." The seed was dropped into fertile ground. Then it was moved to the next ear, and the next, with patience and deliberate method. A lie built to last cannot be rushed. It has to be planted before it is watered. The rumor was not chosen randomly. It went straight for the root of your character, targeting the thing most likely to make a significant person hear your name and contract rather than open toward you. The story was engineered to make you sound like the opposite of what you actually are. It was crafted with just enough specificity to sound plausible, because the most effective lie is never pure fabrication. It is a real circumstance twisted into the wrong interpretation. And it spread, because lies about people who are genuinely sought after always spread fast. There is something in human nature that wants to believe the exceptional person has an exceptional flaw, because it makes the distance between someone else's life and yours feel more comfortable. So the rumor found willing ears, and the willing ears became willing mouths, and before long it had traveled across rooms and relationships and distances you never knew were part of your story. Meanwhile, you were just living your life. You were wondering why things felt strange, turning the interrogation inward, not knowing that the interrogation was supposed to stay external. This is exactly what the whole operation was built on: your goodness, your willingness to self-examine, your tendency to assume you are the variable before you examine the environment. And for a while, if you are honest with yourself, it worked. They made one mistake, one critical, irreversible, cosmically ironic mistake. They targeted the wrong person, and in doing so, they set in motion the very thing they were trying to prevent. Before we move forward, you need to see how this was actually built, because when you understand the real mechanics of it, you stop feeling like you imagined something was wrong. You start seeing the architecture for what it is: fragile, human, and full of cracks. Think of where it happened, not in some dramatic setting, but somewhere far more ordinary. A living room, a group chat notification lighting up multiple phones at the same time, a call left on speaker while someone listens from across the room. That is the environment where your name was weaponized. The tone was casual, comfortable, almost bored, except for the specific mean-spirited excitement that lives in gossip, that is particularly targeted and particularly designed to wound. The conversation did not begin with "I want to destroy this person." It began with something that sounded like concern, something that sounded like reluctant insider knowledge passed along out of obligation, and then the story came out, shaped, refined, delivered with just enough warmth to feel credible. The next person in the circle added something, whether they genuinely believed the story and contributed what they thought was supporting detail, or whether they knew it was false but found inclusion in the inner circle more compelling than the discomfort of speaking up. Either way, the story grew. If this resonates with your inner knowing, hype this video to help fellow chosen ones find their way here. What you need to understand about a circle like this is that it requires constant upkeep. Everyone inside it has to stay aligned on the same version of events, and nobody can go off script. The larger the circle gets, the harder that maintenance becomes. Human beings are not built for sustained collective deception. Eventually someone feels the weight of what they are carrying. Eventually someone says too much to the wrong person. Eventually someone decides their loyalty to the truth is stronger than their loyalty to the group. That decision is the crack that everything eventually falls through. The circle that felt impenetrable always had that crack in it. From the very beginning, the only question was when enough pressure would be applied to open it. And here is the part that was never accounted for. Your rising applied that pressure. Every time you leveled up, every time you moved forward, every time you refused to become the person the story described, the lie became harder to sustain. The story required you to be a certain kind of person, and you kept showing the world exactly who you actually are. Every single time you did that, the lie required more energy to maintain, and that circle was getting tired long before you knew the circle existed. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, a significant person was told the story, someone whose movement toward you would have changed everything. This person believed what they heard, made decisions from it, pulled back, went cold, and stayed inside something that was never the right fit, because the story they were handed made the right thing sound like the wrong thing. You felt that absence in ways that were hard to name. You felt the specific, aching confusion of a connection that was real, but was not moving. You felt the pull toward something that kept not closing the gap. You lay awake in the space between what existed and what your body told you should exist, without any framework for understanding why those two things would not reconcile. You could not grieve it properly, because you could not name it. You cannot heal from interference you did not know was there. So instead you carried it as a general weight. You told yourself you were too attached. You focused on yourself, worked on releasing it, practiced letting go over and over, releasing something that was never yours to release, grieving a distance that was manufactured rather than real. That was the cruelest part of what was done, not just that the separation was created, but that you were handed the emotional cost of it as though it were your own fault. That weight is not yours. It never was. Now here is what you need to know about the person who was handed that story. Despite everything that was arranged around them, they have been thinking, quietly, In the hours when the noise around them gets low enough that their own honest mind gets loud, the math they keep running keeps coming out wrong. The story does not line up against what they actually observe when they pay attention to you, and they have been paying attention more carefully than you know, watching the way you move through difficulty, watching you extend warmth when warmth is not being extended to you, watching you be yourself so consistently and so undeniably that the version of you they were given keeps colliding with the version of you they actually see. There is a threshold past which a person with any genuine honesty cannot keep choosing a story over the evidence directly in front of them. That threshold is approaching, and what you need to know is that the universe has already arranged the thing that tips it. Something is about to surface, and when it does, it is going to land with the specific force of something that has been building for a very long time. Chosen ones, they never expected this. And they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen One channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us. But we will not give up our voice. And now we have something they truly can't: silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. You can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny Engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack. Your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones, press play. That's all. For $1, you switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. Something was taken from you. Not just feelings, actual measurable life force, real momentum, real time that belonged to you and was redirected by interference you never consented to. There was a period where things that should have moved did not move. The abundance that is genuinely native to someone of your caliber was blocked at the source. The creative energy that should have flowed came out as a trickle. The right opportunities would materialize just enough to be visible and then dissolve before you could reach them. Financial flow carried friction it should not have carried. Relationships that should have deepened started to feel strange without obvious cause, and you internalized all of it. You decided you were the problem. You started carrying a verdict against yourself that someone else wrote. On top of everything that was actively working against you from the outside, you were quietly dismantling your own confidence from the inside, doing their work for them without knowing that was what you were doing. That ends here. With this understanding, with you seeing clearly what actually happened, you were not the problem, you were the target, and there is an enormous difference between those two things. One asks you to change yourself. The other asks you to recognize what was done and stop carrying someone else's war as though it were your own personal failure. This is also where the energy of this whole message shifts, because recognizing what was done to you is not the same as choosing to live as someone things were done to. A victim is defined by what happened. A victor is defined by what they do with the clarity that follows the understanding. The difference is not in the event. The difference is entirely in what you do with what you now know. You use it as information. You use it to see clearly. You calibrate from it. And then you get up fully, without apology, and you start moving from a place that nobody can touch because it is built entirely on truth. And then something happened. Maybe it has already happened for you, and you are still processing what it means. Maybe it is incoming, so close you can feel its pressure building against the atmosphere of your life. Either way, it is real, it is irreversible, and it marks the moment the entire architecture of the lie began to collapse. The information surfaced, not through grand dramatic exposure, but through the ordinary mechanics of people who got too comfortable. A message forwarded to the wrong contact. Something said out loud in a room where it was not supposed to be heard. A private conversation shared one time too many with one person who turned out to be less loyal than anyone assumed. Carelessness is always what breaks these things open, and carelessness is precisely what happens when people become certain they have already won. Whatever the specific mechanism, the information landed in the hands of someone who needed to see it, at the exact moment they were most prepared to understand what it meant. Information received before you are ready for it just rolls off. But information received when you have already been doing the quiet math, when your body has already been telling you something does not add up, that information does not just inform you. It rewrites everything instantly, with the terrible and clarifying force of a truth that has been waiting for its moment. The anger that came with that rewriting was real and specific. It was the particular kind of rage that belongs to someone who has just understood they were used, that they were moved like a piece in a game without being told they were in a game at all, that the people they most trusted were the very architects of their manipulation, and that anger did not land on you. It had a very specific address, and it was delivered directly there. The silence that followed from the circle, from the people who had been celebrating, passing their phones around in triumph, was not the silence of peace. It was the silence that arrives just before everything falls. Inside the operation there was someone who was not fully told what the operation actually was. This person was positioned in your proximity with a specific role to observe, to relay information back, to keep the narrative managed. In the machinery of what was built against you, this person was one of the working parts. But being close to you changed something in them that nobody planned for, and nobody could reverse once it started. What this person actually encountered up close was you. Not the version living inside the rumor. The real version, the way you carry yourself when things are genuinely difficult, the way you still extend kindness when kindness is not being extended to you, the way you speak about becoming and healing, and love not as performance but as genuine lived commitment. Your presence was not something that could be compartmentalized and filed away. It kept disrupting the story that had been handed to them, and eventually the disruption became too large to carry alongside the lie. This person became the most consequential figure in this story next to you. Not because of dramatic heroics, but because they were inside the lie and could not sustain it once they saw the truth directly. They had access to what was said, what was decided, what was known, and deliberately withheld. And the people who placed them in that position did so believing that loyalty was guaranteed. What they actually did was construct a door inside their own operation and hand the key to the one person who would eventually use it. The surveillance became the witness, and the witness carries receipts that do not require interpretation, evidence that speaks in the plain, unambiguous language of real words, real voices, real admissions made by people who felt too safe inside the circle to be careful. You cannot argue with that kind of evidence. You cannot perform your way past your own words. You cannot apply enough certainty of tone or rehearsed explanation to make the record mean something other than what it clearly says. And the person who needed to see all of it is now sitting with it, going through it slowly, watching the story they were told dissolve as the truth fills the space where the lie used to live. You did not orchestrate any of this. You did not need to. The truth found its own way through the crack that was always there. The truth is finding its level right now, without your management, without your intervention, without you having to lower yourself one single degree into the frequency of what was done against you. The truth has always had its own delivery system. It has been in motion for longer than you knew. What you do need to decide, and this is the whole charge of this moment, is who you are going to be when that delivery completes itself. Something is coming toward you. It may arrive as an apology. It may arrive as an opportunity that was always supposed to be yours, now cleared of what was blocking it. It may arrive as recognition for what your work and your light and your genuine contribution have always deserved. It may arrive as a conversation with someone who now holds a very different understanding of who you are. Whatever form it takes, it is coming. The channel is open. The block is dissolving. The flow is returning with the full force of everything that was compressed behind it. The only real question is whether you receive it from your full height, standing in everything you actually are, or whether you are still crouched in the doorway carrying the weight of a verdict someone else wrote and got entirely wrong. Let me say this plainly, the verdict was wrong. It was always wrong. And the fact that you kept going, kept building, kept bringing your light, while someone was actively working to extinguish it, that is not a small thing. That is the most powerful character reference that exists. You did not defend yourself by arguing. You defended yourself by refusing to become what they said you were, by continuing, by rising, by being yourself so consistently and so completely that the lie about you kept colliding with the living evidence of you, and the lie lost every single time. That evidence has been accumulating since the beginning, and it is about to be received by everyone it was always meant for. Something is fundamentally different now, and it is worth sitting with what that difference actually is. You have knowledge you did not have before, not just knowledge about what was done to you, but knowledge about what you are genuinely made of. What you discovered about yourself by moving through all of this is not small knowledge. This is the kind of knowledge that restructures everything it touches, the way you read rooms, the way you read people, the way you now trust your own instincts without apologizing for them or second-guessing them into silence. Your discernment is operating at a different level now, not from suspicion and not from the kind of hypervigilance that shuts the world out while calling itself protection. It operates from wisdom, the specific, earned, completely irreplaceable wisdom of someone who survived exactly this kind of targeted deception and came out the other side knowing precisely what to look for. You know the difference now. You know what real support feels like against performed support. You know what genuine connection feels like against strategic interest wearing the mask of genuine connection. You know the feeling in your body when something is truly aligned, and you know that subtle wrongness you feel when the surface looks fine, but something underneath is not. That knowing is not paranoia, it is attunement, and it is going to protect you in ways that nothing else ever could. The abundance is returning. The flow that was suppressed is being restored, not as a trickle, but with the full momentum of everything that was held back for too long. The opportunities are arriving, the recognition is arriving, the financial movement is arriving. The right people with clean hands and genuine intention, who see you without the distortion of the rumor, are coming toward you to build something real rather than extract something convenient. Your name is being said differently now. In some conversations, among people who previously held a distorted picture of you, the story is correcting itself, not because you staged a campaign to repair your reputation, because the truth, once it starts moving, does not stop. The same channels that spread the lie are now involuntarily carrying the correction. Someone who received the rumor is receiving new information. Someone who passed it on is quietly reconsidering. Someone who made a decision about you based on what they heard is sitting with a different feeling about that decision than they had before. You have not had to say a single word. You have not had to correct, explain, or justify anything. The record is correcting itself because your presence, the sustained, authentic, unapologetic expression of who you actually are, is the most powerful form of reputation restoration that exists. You do not fix your name by talking about your name. You fix it by living in a way that makes the lie unsustainable, by being so consistently and undeniably yourself that the version of you the rumor described stops making sense to anyone who has actually been paying attention. You have been doing exactly that the whole time. Even in the moments that felt like just surviving, you were building a living record of who you are that no rumor can compete with. And what survives a deliberate attempt at destruction does not just return to where it was. It returns elevated, tested, confirmed, and more solid than it ever was before. There is a reckoning underway, and you need to understand clearly what it is and what it is not. This is not about punishment. This is not about you watching anyone fall. That is not your role, not your concern, and frankly it is beneath you. Here is what it actually is. It is the mathematics of what was set in motion. What you direct outward returns. What is built with borrowed force collapses when that force is called home. What is constructed on a foundation of lies stands only as long as the lies hold, and the lies are not holding. The structures that were built around keeping you down, keeping you separated from what was meant for you, keeping the wrong story in circulation, those structures are unraveling, not because you pulled at them, but because they were never as permanent as they appeared. They were always contingent on your not knowing, on the circle staying sealed, on the truth failing to find its way to the surface. All of those conditions have now changed. You do not need to gloat. You do not need to announce anything. You do not need to do a single thing except continue to rise. Your rising is the statement. Your abundance is the verdict. Your unstoppable, sovereign, fully inhabited presence in your own life is the most devastating possible response to everything that was thrown at it. And the most powerful part is that it requires nothing from you except being exactly who you already are. A rumor is a living thing that requires a specific environment to survive. It needs darkness. It needs willing carriers, people who pass it without verifying it and invest their energy into keeping it moving. It needs the absence of the truth in the same space. Your rumor had all of those things for a period, but the light got in. The willing carriers started losing their willingness as the evidence shifted and the story became harder to hold together. Your authentic self, the version of you that could never be permanently suppressed, kept surfacing in ways the rumor could not account for. And a lie cannot survive sustained contact with the living truth of the person it claims to describe. So the rumor is running out of air. Not dramatically, not with any public retraction, just quietly in the way lies die, by becoming too heavy for anyone to keep carrying. The excitement that fueled the original spreading has been gone for a long time. What remains is only the weight of something that was never true, held by people who no longer have a compelling reason to hold it. As that weight is put down, the version of you the rumor described dissolves from the picture. What remains is only what was always real, the version that was always there, the version you never actually stopped being, even when the world around you was hearing a different story about who you are. That is not a comeback. That is a reveal. Comebacks suggest you were gone. You were never gone. You were temporarily obscured. And now the obstruction is clearing, and what people are seeing is what was always there. One more thing before the close, because there is a choice ahead of you that genuinely matters. Something is arriving with an offering. Maybe it is an apology. Maybe it is a conversation that has been overdue for too long. Maybe it is an attempt to rebuild something that was broken before it ever had a real chance to exist. Maybe it is simply the closure that has been owed to you and withheld long past when it should have arrived. When it does arrive, you are going to feel the pull of your history. The old wound underneath all of this is going to make itself known. There is going to be a moment when the version of you that lived through the middle of this situation wants to respond from that place, from the longing, from the waiting, from the part that just wants everything resolved and finished and whole. Do not let that version answer. Let the version that came through all of this answer instead. The version standing in this moment with full understanding of what happened, with wisdom earned the hard way, with discernment sharpened by fire, and with an unshakable knowing of exactly what you bring and exactly what you deserve. Let that version be the one who speaks. Here is what choosing from that place actually feels like, so you recognize it when the moment comes. It does not feel like coldness or indifference. Choosing from power feels like stillness. It feels like being rooted so completely in yourself that the weight, the significance and the emotional pull of the moment cannot knock you off your foundation. You can feel all of it, the history, the stakes, the desire for things to be whole, and still make a clear, deliberate decision about what you genuinely want. Not what is available, not what you are willing to settle for, but what you actually want as someone who has been through something real and knows exactly what they are worth. You can choose to rebuild. You can choose closure. You can choose something entirely new that was not on the table before any of this happened. All of those are valid. All of them can be right, depending on what is true for you specifically. The only wrong move is the one made from the wound instead of the wisdom, and you have the wisdom now. You have been building it the entire time you thought you were just trying to survive. This is the moment. You choose fully, freely from your actual power, not from need, not from history, from the clear, sovereign, undiminished knowledge of who you are and what you deserve. Whatever you choose from that place is the right choice, because it will be entirely, completely, authentically yours. You put your attention here, on what is in front of you, on the life that is opening, on the people arriving in it with clear eyes and genuine hands, on the flow returning with the full force of everything that was compressed behind the block, on the purpose that is finally meeting the world without anything obstructing it, on the version of yourself that came through everything designed to reduce you and came out larger, clearer, more sovereign, more completely and unassailably yourself than you have ever been before. The rumor was supposed to be your story. It was supposed to define how the world saw you. It was supposed to be the ceiling of what you were allowed to become. Instead, the rumor became the origin story. It became the thing that revealed exactly who was in your corner and who was not. It became the thing that sharpened every instinct, tested every foundation, and ultimately, in the particular ironic way that only the universe can arrange, sent you directly into the fire that burned away everything that was not truly you, and left behind the version of you that nobody will ever again mistake for someone who can be managed, reduced, or controlled by a group chat and a carefully planted lie. The lies about you became proof of your worth. Nobody builds a burn book for someone who does not matter. Nobody runs an operation against someone who does not represent a genuine threat to the status quo. The size of the effort against you is the most accurate measure of the size of what you carry. They told lies about you, and you became the truth they cannot argue with. They spread rumors about your worth, and you became a living demonstration of worth that needs no defense. They tried to hold you down, and you leveled up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is not a countdown to someone else arriving in your life, and it is not a countdown to external validation or the moment someone finally tells the full truth out loud. This is a countdown to you, fully in your power, standing in everything you survived, receiving everything that was always meant for you, with both hands open and no apology owed to anyone. Just you, leveling up. The circle went quiet. The rumor ran out of air, and you walked through the space where it used to be like it was never there at all, because for you, it never was. That was always the truth, and now the world is simply catching up.